President Bola Tinubu has dismissed the widely held belief that the nation's economy is in a crisis. Faced with criticism over the grains donated by Ukraine, President Tinubu says the fact that Nigeria accepted grains from Ukraine does not make Nigeria a weak or a failed state. Indeed, the president is faced with a plethora of issues, but he says he asks for the job and he shouldn't be pitied. Well, Nigerians are asking for the renewed hope promised during the campaign season. And of course, there have been lots of accusations against subnationals, that's state governments, for also not playing their part to help promote good governance. And of course, the heat has been on the federal government alone. Well, my next guest is Honorable Aniekan Umanah, who's a former member representing Abak, Etim, Ekpo, and Ika Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives, and also a former Akwa Ibom State Commissioner for Information. He'll help us unbundle all of this. Thank you so much, Honorable, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so the subnationals, I mean, so many of the states are facing a backlash from federal authorities. Some of the ministers and the president are saying that, look, I mean, yes, we remove subsidy and all of that, but the states have more monies now. I don't really know what's going on. Where is the money? Why are the states not doing their own part to support the federal government?
Yes, thank you very much, Sambo. I've heard all that and so on, but the truth is that there's difficulty in the land. It's not about how much money. It's about what is happening and what is possible. There have been arguments back and forth about monies going to states and not going, arguments back and forth. Yes, we've had all of that. With the removal of subsidy, yes, allocations have improved in terms of monetary figures. But what does that translate to? We are today in a failed financial management system. Clearly so. Even the 2024 budget of the federal government, 28.3 trillion naira has collapsed, in my estimation. Why? It was benchmarked at 800 to 1. What is the exchange rate today?
Yeah, man.
So assuming you had anything you had planned at a benchmark of 800 to 1, and then suddenly in the official window you had 1,310 or more, and then of course in the parallel system you're doing over 1,006, 1,008. We saw even up to 2,000 at a time, and so on. So if you were taking, for instance, 3 billion, and suddenly your money is 6 billion, what's the difference? Have you made any progress? Absolutely nothing. If cement was 5,000 and you're suddenly finding it at 13,000, so what's the difference? If bread, for instance, was 250 naira and suddenly it's 1,005, what's the difference? So we shouldn't be looking at money in terms of number. What is the value that's available? But coming back to states, I think so many states are also bearing the brunt of these problems, and they're beginning to see and thinking of how to solve them. Several of the states in the Federation are responding to the issues and so on, particularly the issues of hunger. In my state, I can say for sure what I know.
That's Akwa
Ibom State. And a few others that I also have information on. I'll be able to share some of my thoughts. My own governor, His Excellency the Pastor Governor Umanah, is very much aware of this, and he keeps telling the people that it's time to get back to food production. It's time to get back to agriculture. It's time to face the basic issues of feeding, because that is the problem today. He went on recently to propose a bill for a bulk purchase agency, which has been passed into law, to harness the totality of food products around and about the state and even beyond, and put them together and sell them back to the people at a subsidized rate. The modality is being worked out.
Yeah, but I just hope the warehouses where they'll be stored won't be looted.
That's all, these are the issues we need to. These are all the issues we need to look at, because warehouses are being looted as a product of hunger. But states must begin to look at these issues. I'm also happy when I saw what our friend, the governor of Niger, the investment he made in our agricultural inputs and tractors and so on to encourage agriculture. In Akwa Ibom, everybody, whether you're a politician, a businessman, and so on, is encouraged to go back to farm. At least let's begin to produce what the people can eat, because the issue today is about hunger. The issue today is about food. Like the last speaker did say, you cannot contain hunger. You cannot contain the frustration that comes with hunger. You cannot contain the frustration that comes with a family getting up and not finding what to give to the children, or getting up and suddenly they find out that rice that they were buying for 30,000 per bag suddenly has gone to 80,000. You cannot content finding that the bread that you're buying for 250 same time last year is now 1,500, 1,700. You cannot contend sachet water, pure water, that was 150 naira a bag for 20 sachets in one, costing up to 800 naira, meaning that pure water can cost about 100 naira. So we have problems in our hands.
Yeah, but the president says,
and in the federal government, in the federal, everywhere there's problem.
I had to cut in there because the president is cutting some of you short and saying that some of you are taking this out of proportion, that the economy is not in distress, especially some opposition political parties. Now, in your state, I mean, Akwa Ibom is an opposition state, and I want you to talk to us. Is it even the media? Is the media blowing things out of proportion from your own perspective?
No, I do not think so. The media is not blowing things out of proportion. The truth must be told. Clearly, the president took responsibility for the situation. He did say that he feels and understands the pains of Nigerians. We have had him say that severally. And he's asked for patience. He's asked Nigerians to be patient, that he's doing what he can to see how he can change the situation. Meaning he acknowledges that there's a problem. Otherwise, he will not take responsibility. And he will not make the appeal. And I think that is important. I applaud him for taking responsibility, because that is leadership. But it doesn't take away the problem. We must face the problem. The president said the ball stops on his table. Yes, he stops on his table because he's the last man standing for the nation of almost 250 million people. But we must now begin to look at the critical issues that will take us out of this doldrum. A country with over 987,000 square meters of land space, arable land that you can farm and year after year, you can produce virtually everything we need, and so on. We are unable to feed ourselves. It is shameful as a nation. It's not just about today. We've been on this over time and so on. So nothing is blown out of proportion. Let us get back to the issues that will help the nation. Let us get back to agriculture. Let us rejig the whole mechanism of the agricultural system and see how we can encourage farmers, how we can get back to the agricultural loan system that we grew up with as we are seeing people developing small holding farms, developing community holding farms, developing local holding farms to be able to produce food and at least produce what they can eat in the first instance, before talking about even exporting. That is the stage we are in. All
right, so how can we have a bipartisan approach to solving the nation's challenges? The National Assembly has different political parties. How can they work together? The state assemblies also have different political parties. How can governors partner with the federal government, irrespective of their political parties, to create wealth, empower people, rebuild the system? And then how can the federal government actually, through the National Economic Council, which I know that you are very aware of, how that instrument of government can actually be used to drive development downwards? Although the vice president chairs it, but nonetheless, that's the only forum where the states and the federal meet to take economic decisions.
The time is now for that bipartisan approach to the development of this country. The time is now for that essential dialogue, irrespective of political party, that will lead us out of the present quagmire. There's a problem. Take it or leave it. We're out there on the streets. We're interacting with our constituents. We're interacting with people. We're in various communities. We are feeling we're getting feelers. And like you said earlier, now this is the days of the social media. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is hidden. The other day in Abuja here, I had a story where someone was driving through in an SUV, a private person, not even a government official, and a vehicle was stoned. People started throwing stones and sachets of water. Say, see them. So we shouldn't allow it get to that, so that we don't get into anarchy. So this is the time for the National Economic Council, like you rightly raised, state governors and all of them to come in and work together. In my state, there's serious bipartisan approach and cooperation. The governor of the state, His Excellency Pastor Umanah, is working very closely with the federal government, irrespective of the political party position and perspective, and then begin to explore how they can collaborate and cooperate to help in the development of the state. And this I recommend to every government.
The Senate president actually comes from your state.
Exactly.
And of course, there has to be a lot of bipartisan cooperation.
There must be synergy to enable the development of the state. We can't have a group fighting in Abuja and a group fighting in the state. And then, of course, if there's no peace and there's rancor, there cannot be development. So that is needed across board. It is a time to harness ideas. Look at those who can contribute to the development of the state. Look at the country. Look at those who have odd ideas to offer, bring them together. Yes, recently the president brought together a committee and so on, but I think we need to look more and expand it a little more, get more thoughts, and then begin to see things happen. Nigerians want to see things happen.
Yeah.
Whatever economic arithmetic that we are talking about, whether monetary policy, whether MPR, MPC, call it anything, liquidity ratio or rate, as long as it fails to translate into the livelihood of the people, of which is one, affordability of food, availability of food, affordability of food, and efficient distribution of food. That is the starting point to quelling and calming the nerves of Nigerians. You come to the issue of transportation. When people keep asking, why we have local food produced, why is it so costly? I say it's a product of the cost of petroleum products. With diesel at 1,700, 1,800, and so on. How much do you need to buy 50 liters of diesel to move a truck from hinterland to the city? That translates into the cost of that food that gets to the market. That is the problem.
All right. Some people also say that the government is not innovative in ideas. For example, if you have food trucks passing through different towns and all of that, you should reduce taxation on them, or such food trucks could be painted in green so that when they get to where you have all these local governments or state or federal checkpoints and all of that, they will be allowed to pass, and that some of those trucks, as long as they are food trucks and all of that, could actually have a form of preferable way of getting their diesel, maybe, or compressed natural gas, which makes their lifting of goods cheaper. So is the government lacking ideas? And what can be done to harness more ideas to ensure that we get out of these economic challenges?
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's an issue of setting the right guidelines and policy framework. Yes, because talking about food trucks, most of those food trucks are private, but what can bring them together is the right type of policy and a framework that allows that to happen, and then have states come together and understand that if this is passing through your system, it should go in this manner. The issue of taxation, I think this is a country that is most taxed, because the taxation is at every level. Whether you are paying VAT or paying withholding tax or paying the tax on bread or paying the one from local government, from one from AMAC, the one from what's it called, ITF, the one from all sorts of things. If you list the number of taxes that Nigerians pay, I don't think there's anywhere on earth that we have this number of taxes.
Some people in government would disagree with you.
I do not think so. If you take the list, ask your researchers in the studio to research the number of taxes in Abuja alone, where you are, just the number of taxes that each business pays. You will understand that sometimes there's even no need to do any business in this country. Those are all the things we should look at. At this time of difficulty, we should look at tax reliefs. We should look at the waivers that will help the system stabilize and allow business people and those who are supporting the system to produce and bring in those things that will allow Nigerians to have some safety.
Ease of doing business and all of that. Now, you're from the oil-rich Niger Delta region, and people are saying that it looks like people so much from that region are not facing the heat like other parts of the country. We haven't heard food trucks being attacked and all of that. Talk to us about how people are coping and how we could strengthen the advantage that region has. For example, you have lots of water and all of that, fishery. I mean, in those days we used to hear of lots of fishery activities, but we don't hear so many states investing, or even the federal authorities investing in fishery so much. How can we harness the oil-rich Niger Delta region to contribute to the economic development apart from oil? Not just oil, because we can't all drink oil now.
No, I completely agree with you. There's need to look at the totality of the development model in the Niger Delta region. And of course, look at agriculture from different perspectives, whether it's from the blue economy perspective or from the farming perspective, which is also what, for instance, in my state, the governor of Akwa Ibom is really looking at. Because apart from developing the farming settlements, which he started with the one at Isurubium, is also encouraging the aquatic economic activities, which is also a heavy revenue earner in the coastal area. We have a very long coastline, and that ditto for the entirety of the Niger Delta. I agree with you that government needs to come together and reason out ways of improving of the other leg of the economy, the other leg of those products that come out of the water that will also help in economic stability. But truly, a lot of them are living off that. Crayfish is a very major product that comes out of the water and is very expensive. Fish It's a major earner of money and revenue. It's also expensive, and it's also very dietic for people. So they are engaging in them at subsistence level, but government needs to encourage them. Government needs to encourage private fishermen and then commercialize their activities, invest in them, provide loans and support. So I completely agree with you that there's need to look in that direction. Ditto the nation, because water is not only in the Niger Delta. We have water all across Nigeria. So these are some of the creative thinking that government must begin to wear at this time. I think that the Federal Ministry of Agriculture needs to be unbundled and looked at very critically and giving a task, like a marching order, to make sure that things happen. Not about saying that we want to distribute grains, no. It's not enough. How many?
All right. Well, just before I let you go, there's this school of opinion by Professor Kingsley Moghalu, former CBN deputy governor, saying that, look, Nigeria could actually approach the IMF and seek for a $30 billion loan. Are you in that school of thought that we could actually get such a huge amount of money as loan, considering that we got $3 billion through that agreement with Afreximbank, and so many people are asking questions where the money is even.
We need to first look at our loan stock, because we know the quantum of money that the last administration borrowed. I was in the 9th Assembly, and I have an idea of the quantum of loans that the National Assembly approved. And then, of course, government is still borrowing, and we want to borrow more. We need to really look at these things and then say, for what? It's not enough to borrow. Yes, to borrow is not bad. Borrow for what? Borrow for what? Because we're coming from a system where we're borrowing for what we never knew. We're borrowing for what were never itemized. And we're borrowing for what we never saw at the end of the day. And at the end, we keep owing and owing for what? For me, I don't think it's just about borrowing. If you want to borrow strategically and borrow for a targeted purpose that will translate into bettering the livelihood of the generality of Nigerians, then there is nothing wrong with it. If it's to borrow so that we can begin to fritter the money away and do whatever we like, and then turn around after and then appoint private investigators to go and look, and then the next thing we begin to see here humongous billions and trillions in private accounts, I think that is not where we should be. We should think about Nigerians. We should think about how they live. We should think about the things that will take Nigerians out of hunger and make them more comfortable, and then, of course, more forward-looking.
All right, that's such a fine place to actually leave this conversation. Honorable Aniekan Umanah is a former federal lawmaker from Akwa Ibom State, and also a former commissioner for information in that state. And we must thank you for immense wealth of wisdom. And we just hope the government is listening, because it's easier for people in government to have their ears shut. I mean, you've been in that circle before.
Yes, I'm still playing advisory role to my governor.
Yeah, so we just hope they actually listen to some of the...
He's a very listening one, because his approach is different.
All right. Well, maybe people, because he's a pastor.
I guess so.
Well, thank you so much, Honorable Aniekan Umanah, for joining us. And that's how it's been for this edition of Arise Primetime. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Somna Samuel.